The Olympic Games in Tokyo have drawn to a close with yet more goals for Team GB.
And we're watching British Olympic history as Jason Kenny takes the title.
It's his 7th gold medal in 4 Olympic Games, making Jason Kenny Britain's most decorated athlete.
I felt like I was standing still around that last corner. I was hacking away. But I just kept telling myself, you know, it's a medal, it's a medal. Even if one comes, it's still a medal. And then when I crossed the line, I was like, oh, it's a bloody gold medal.
And Lauren Price took the final day's other Team GB gold in middleweight boxing. The closing ceremony was spectacular but played out to an empty stadium due to COVID. So, how will the Tokyo Games be remembered? We'll assess its possible legacy. Also on the programme, it's the 5th day of wildfires burning out of control in Greece, in what the Prime Minister calls a nightmarish summer. And from today, if you're returning to Britain from France, no need to quarantine if you're double jabbed. Good evening. The Olympic flag in Tokyo has been lowered, officially bringing to an end the 2020 Games. The closing ceremony, like many of the sporting events, was held in an empty stadium with no fans due to COVID restrictions. Team GB had a good Games, matching their medals tally of London 2012, 65 in all, including 22 golds. The final day saw Jason Kenny secure a surprise victory in the velodrome, making him Britain's most decorated Olympian. And the middleweight boxer Lauren Price also won gold. Natalie Perks has our first report this evening from Tokyo.
Jason Kenny is Britain's most successful Olympian of all time.
And how? The man with the most medals and the most golds did it with the most accomplished performance of his career.
What a lineup for this Olympic final.
He'd certainly saved the best till last. Performances in qualifying had been less than explosive, but wait, something extraordinary was about to happen.
Jason Kenny makes a move early here.
Sensing an opportunity, Kenny put the hammer down and left his rivals eating dust.
And we're watching British Olympic history as Jason Kenny takes the title.
His teammates enjoyed that one. The most understated of champions had delivered golds across 4 Olympic Games, a triumph of endurance.
It's funny, when you look back on the ones you've already got, it seems really easy. And then when you try and get more, it just seems unbelievable. You remember how hard it was. But I just kept telling myself, you know, it's a medal, it's a medal. Even if one comes, it's still a medal. And then when I crossed the line, I was like, oh, it's a bloody gold medal.
But it's not just Jason Kenny making waves here. There have been some spectacular Olympic debuts, some remarkable personal achievements and many records broken. But this is it, the final medal of the Tokyo Games for Team GB. But what colour will it be for Lauren Price?
Well, there is Lauren Price making her familiar march towards the boxing ring.
The life of this champion from the valleys is a script straight from Hollywood. Raised by her grandparents, 52 football caps for Wales and multiple kickboxing world titles. Along the way, she worked night shifts as a taxi driver to support her boxing training. Today, Li Qian of China, the Rio bronze medalist, was the passenger in this fight.
There's confirmation, Lauren Price.
And in her moment of glory, a glance to the heavens for her late grandfather.
It's a dream come true. Yeah, I still can't believe it. I got to pinch myself. But it just goes to show years of hard work. If you dream and you work hard enough, you can achieve anything.
This was British boxing's most successful Olympics since 1920. But as the sun set on the Tokyo Games, one man's audacious victory left him head and shoulders above the rest. Natalie Perks, BBC News, Tokyo.
Well, Tokyo handed over the Olympic flag to the Mayor of Paris, setting the stage for the next Games in 2024. During the closing ceremony, the organisers declared it had given hope and unity to the world in the midst of the pandemic. So, how would the Tokyo Games be remembered? Here's our sports editor, Dan Rowan.
The end of a Games like no other. As with the rest of Tokyo's Olympics, its closing ceremony was behind closed doors. The athletes with the stadium largely to themselves. Laura Kenny, Britain's greatest female Olympian, with the honour of carrying the flag. but rather than sadness at what was missing, a sense of pride at the spirit that had prevailed.
For the first time since the pandemic began, the entire world came together. Billions of people around the globe were united by emotion. This gives us faith in the future. The Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 are the Olympic Games of hope, solidarity and peace.
From world records,
smash the old world record,
and new sports,
that was incredible,
to shots,
Italy take the gold,
and great sportsmanship.
Oh, they've given it to them both.
Tokyo 2020 will be seen by many as a classic, despite unprecedented challenges faced by both organisers and athletes.
I think it's just been the most probably challenging games, but at the same time the most giving, because if you've got here and you've achieved what you wanted after everything that we've been through, it just makes these medals just that bit more special.
Britain's 65 medals equals their haul as hosts at London 2012. This their second most successful overseas games after Rio. Rowing, a traditional strength, disappointed, but in other sports Team GB excelled, including the new mixed events. Glory shared by both familiar faces and new stars.
Oh, yes!
I think it's up there with one of the great achievements of recent games. 70% of the squad here today are expected to medal in Paris, not in Tokyo. They had the coronavirus to deal with, a lack of proper competitive build-up that builds that experience into the team. So to have performed as they have done is a remarkable testimony to all those athletes.
Athlete welfare was a recurring theme, raised not only by superstar Simone Biles, but also the extreme heat competitors faced. The case of Belarus sprinter Kristina Timanovskaya after she refused her team's orders to fly home was another controversy the Games will be remembered for.
The sense here in Tokyo is that these athletes ultimately came to the rescue of these games. The judgment and the motives behind pressing on with these Olympics will always be debated, but for many, the fact that we're here at the closing ceremony after so many magic moments represents a triumph of sports resilience and defiance.
Like so much here, tonight's ceremony still managed to impress. Surely the next host, Paris, won't face such challenges. Defined and delayed by the pandemic, the Olympics were finally over, but the moments they provided will live on. Dan Rowan, BBC News, Tokyo.
Well, the Games were held in some of the most difficult of circumstances. Let's talk to our Tokyo correspondent, Rupert Winfield-Hayes. Rupert, how do you assess the Games will be remembered, perhaps beyond the sport?
Well, Clive, it has been very strange, as Dan suggested in his report. We've had, if you like, the tale of two cities inside the Olympic bubble, where we've seen these tremendous sporting achievements. Team GB has done very well. Japan, the host, has done extremely well as well, coming third in the medals table. And you know, the worries about COVID did not emerge. There was no super spreader event because of mass testing, daily testing, because of high vaccine rates amongst the athletes. They kept that under control. But then if you look outside in the other Tokyo, most of the time over the last 2 weeks, if you didn't know, you wouldn't really have felt that this city was hosting an Olympics. Even hardcore sports fans I've talked to said it felt like it was in another country, even on another continent. And then if you look at the COVID situation outside, it's very, very different. There hasn't been enough testing, haven't been enough vaccines. And because of that, Clive, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen COVID rates, infections tripling since the beginning of the Olympics. And we now have a situation as the Olympics leave town with Japan facing its worst situation since the pandemic began.
OK, Rupert, thank you very much indeed for that. Rupert Winfield-Hayes there, live in Tokyo. Now, hundreds more people have been forced to leave their homes in parts of Greece as wildfires continue to blaze out of control. The country's most intense heat wave in 30 years has made woodland tinder dry, creating perfect conditions for the fires to burn. The region north of Athens and Avia, Greece's second largest island, are among the worst affected areas, from where ferries are helping evacuate residents and holidaymakers. Our Europe correspondent Bethany Bell has sent us this report from Avia.
Flaming forests on the island of Avia. Firefighters are struggling to stop fires in the north of the island. and it's caused an exodus. There are long queues at this port. People are waiting to get on ferries to the mainland. Holidaymakers and some locals are leaving after villages and parts of the north of the island were evacuated.
Bye.
Chris, who works on Evia as a singer, says the wildfires are spreading and the authorities aren't doing enough.
The most people see that we don't have any help until yesterday, and they could save everybody, and it wasn't true. The people don't know where to go. The big problem is that we feel that they let us burn.
This is what they're fleeing from. Wildfires have been blazing out of control for almost a week now. Houses and forests have been destroyed. This village is being evacuated. As thick orange smoke fills the air, people wait nervously for the ferry to depart.
It's like a scene of an apocalyptic movie, definitely, because there's no sky, the sun is red. It's quite scary.
It's time to leave. The fires are getting closer and closer to this village. Just a few miles from here, there are bright blue skies, but here the air is full of smoke and ash, and it's making it harder for people to breathe.
No one knows if this village will be spared. It's now up to the gods of the winds and the weather. Bethany Bell, BBC News, Evia.
Well, the world is getting dangerously close to running out of time to avert catastrophic climate change. That's the warning from Alok Sharma, the minister in charge of November's climate change conference in Glasgow. Let's get more from our political correspondent, Damien Grammaticus, who's here. So is this the kind of rhetoric, Damien, that's designed to, I don't know, focus people's minds as we lead into Glasgow?
Absolutely, Clive. I mean, those fires, the recent floods in Germany, Alok Sharma says he thinks you are seeing there the impacts of climate change in extreme weather events, and we cannot afford to wait to deal with it, he says. Now, he's saying this because tomorrow we will see the UN release a new report with the latest global science, how serious it is. In just a few weeks, as you say, Mr. Sharma will be hosting for the UK all the world's countries in Glasgow, how to deal with this, and some really serious questions. Will he be able to get the big emitters like China to make big enough changes? Will he get enough money on the table from the rich countries? Yeah. Questions for the UK government's own policy. It's looking at oil and coal projects. What sort of leadership does that show? How will it get help to pay for the transition for hard-up households to change their heating, the cars they drive? But while we've all been in lockdown, Mr. Sharma has been jetting around the world to 30-plus countries, and he's been defending that, saying those trips have been vital if he's to get success in November.
Sure. OK, Damien, thank you. Damien Grammaticus there. The Taliban is continuing its advance across Afghanistan, capturing 2 northern cities, one of them the strategic town of Kunduz. But the government says fighting is still continuing. Airstrikes by American long-range bombers are said to have killed dozens of militants in recent days. Here, the latest government coronavirus figures show there were more than 27,000 new infections recorded in the latest 24-hour period, which means on average there were 27,288 new cases per day in the last week. 39 deaths were recorded in the last 24 hours. That's an average of 86 a day in the last 7 days. Nearly 89% of adults in the UK have now had their first jab, and 74.5% are fully vaccinated. The latest changes to the UK's COVID travel restrictions have come into force. Mexico is now on the red list, with arrivals to Britain having to stay in a government-approved hotel for 10 days isolation at their own expense. 7 countries, including Germany, have been added to the green list. And there are no restrictions for travellers who've been double jabbed arriving from France. Our business correspondent Katie Austin has all the details.
Just off the Eurostar from Paris to London, and for passengers who've had both jabs, there's now no need to isolate.
We were expecting to quarantine, so with having the kids, it's a very nice surprise that we don't have to. It's the first time they've seen their grandparents in France for the last 18 months.
We were able to go back today and not have to quarantine. That's pretty great, yeah.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It definitely enables us to travel a little bit more, yeah.
Desperate for any boost after the crippling effect of more than a year of restrictions, travel and tourism businesses are hoping for a flurry of last-minute holiday bookings. Brittany Ferries has seen a surge in reservations, but still only hopes to carry 500,000 passengers this year, less than a quarter of pre-pandemic levels.
Season 21 will be worse than the season 20 for Brittany Ferries, so I guess it's more than welcome, this announcement. It's good news, but it comes in a year where, at the end of the day, for us, everything is about 22 and making 22 a real normal year.
The changes coming in today are subject to a review in 3 weeks. The Transport Secretary has argued this provides some certainty for passengers. There are concerns, though, in the travel industry that COVID testing requirements are still putting people off, and some businesses think it's too late to save their summer. Katie Austin, BBC News.
That's it. I'll be back with the late news at 10, now on BBC One. Time for the news where you are. Bye for now.